Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Perpetual Chess World Championship bonus pod. This will be the last bonus pod, although not the last coverage of the World Championship. And we are excited to bring in a guest who I teased. He is an award-winning coach, Chessable author, YouTuber, and streamer. As I've mentioned a couple times, he's actually doing a free Chessable course on this very match, so a perfect person to talk to. And as those of you who heard my conversation with Hefem, my client heard that he was in Singapore. He's actually already back in Australia, so a whirlwind few days, and he's still got a video recap to record for his Chessable course as he joins me in the morning in Australia, in the evening, Monday evening here in New York. Pleased, as always, to welcome back. I am Andras Toth. Welcome, Andras.
Thank you very much for having me. What an absolute pleasure to join the pod again.
Yes. It's always good to reunite. And yeah, what an interesting time to join. Of course, after round 12, as those of you listening probably already know, the match is tied, but not in a boring GM draw fashion by any means. I was not so surprised that after a boring draw 3 games ago, in round 11, we saw Gukesh win, not one for the history books or anything, but a huge momentous win, with Ding unfortunately making a very memorable blunder and managing his clock quite poorly. But then today obviously shocked me, as Ding, with the white pieces, played a brilliant game, and Gukesh just never had a chance. What was your reaction to all of this, Andras?
Well, it's not like, I want to make it look like it's all about me, but as a quick side note, I would like to mention that I left Singapore 2 days ago, and since then we have had exactly the same amount of decisive games as we had in the 9 days that I spent there. I actually tweeted this, and many suggested that perhaps I should just travel to and fro every day to make sure that I leave Singapore every single day to ensure a decisive outcome. Obviously, things are heating up for the end. I was a little bit shocked by game 12 and the fashion in which it unfolded too, because it was a very one-sided game, let's be honest with ourselves. And one-sided in a way that I never saw coming, because basically out of the opening, I think Gukesh sort of played himself into a slightly inferior position, I think with the mentality that it's fine, I will be able to hold it. And I think that mentality has led to continuous inferior decisions, but within the margin of it is still a little bit worse, or maybe even a bit worse than it was a move ago, but I can still hold it. And this continuous snowball effect of, oh yeah, I don't like it, but I can still hold it kind of mentality, I think allowed him to eventually go from a decent-ish opening into a really hopeless position, despite the fact, of course, that it looked dead even in terms of material. But once his knights on b6 and c6 were stuck against the pawns on c4 and d4, it just looked like he had nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Almost felt like he got outclassed, to be honest.
For sure. A lot of you listening may have heard or will listen to Magnus Carlsen and Levi Rosman's recap on the Tick 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 YouTube channel. And yeah, Magnus was saying it looked like a Super GM's win against like a 2500 player. That was one of the more flattering things he's said about these players during the match. And, again, as always, I'll leave it to him to parse the difference among players of this caliber. But certainly Gukesh never had a chance, and I certainly didn't see that coming. And Andras, I don't know if you caught the press conference, but it was pretty funny as reporters lined up to try to get Ding to say what he'd done differently. Did you happen to catch it?
No, actually I haven't, because that was well past my bedtime and I needed to be fresh as a daisy for this interview, so that was the sacrifice I had to make, pun intended.
Yeah, I figured as much. So for listeners, really appreciate that Andras is joining us basically first thing in the morning in Australia, whereas I've had a day to digest the events. To catch you up, Andras, so yeah, basically like I am Michael Rahal, Mike Klein, they're all asking like, and to their credit, they're trying to get sort of like chess improvement takeaways that us casuals, can get, and they're like, so what did you do differently? How did you bounce back? And Ding's like, well, I had coffee before the round. I tried to do something different with my hair. His hair looked the same to me. He's like, I got a good night's sleep. I don't know, a lot of us try to get a good night's sleep before a tournament, but like half the time it doesn't work. So no momentous insights from Ding, but definitely a momentous game.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you guys out there who are, eager to improve their chess, I suppose it's simple. Just have a coffee, like easy.
Right.
Maybe carry a comb with you and the rest will take care of itself.
Exactly. Yeah, and it turns out I've been there all along. I've been mainlining coffee for years, so I don't know why, why it hasn't filtered through to my results yet, but I'll stick with it. Before I do want to, Andras, being that you are such a renowned coach and your videos are always so instructive, I do want to talk more than we have in previous interviews about what we maybe can learn from this match. But first, before we do that, any sort of big picture takeaways or predictions, dare I ask, as we head into game 13, deadlocked. Obviously, predictions are foolhardy given the way this is unfolded, but I got to ask.
Look, obviously, I absolutely have to make and suggest some predictions because I have been doing them in YouTube shorts and tweets from round one. And I think I did not get a single thing correct, whether it be outcome, opening, you name it. If I guessed anything in the past 12 days, your safest bet was to go the polar opposite way, and that was pretty much as good as it got. Like, I've got nothing. I have never seen such an unpredictable match in my life on this level in terms of opening choices. And this has been a trend, by the way, I think, on top-level chess for the past 20 years, I would say. Most notably with Magnus's reign and with his matches. In his coach, Peter Heine, I think, said it a number of times that their opening prep has switched from looking for advantages to look for positions where Magnus feels comfortable. So that they didn't necessarily want a better position from an opening, they just wanted something where Magnus was happy, even if the engine's at 000. And now we took that to a step even further when now players are playing like reverse openings.
Yeah.
We go to the point where we have seen a reverse London in that very weird knight f3, e3, b3 bishop opening that was, by the way, played by Petrosian, no less.
Right.
I think it was game 4 or thereabouts.
It's definitely early.
Then we saw a reverse Blumenfeld. You just can't guess at all. It's absolutely insane. I mean, who would have thought that the French would come out more than once? Right? So, in terms of already opening choices, you don't know move one.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, you saw a Nepal match and you knew that the Petrov is going to pop up 4 times, right? You knew that he was going to chuck out e4 at least half of his e4 games. Like, there was a fair deal of predictability. You kind of knew, and when it popped up on the board, the viewers went like, yeah, that's what everyone thought. Sure enough, we are prepared. And so were the players. And I'm not suggesting that the players are not prepared now, but you can see these very early time consumptions as early as move 4 yesterday, or rather the day before, excuse me, with the reverse Blumenfeld. It's like, it's open game. It seems to me that both of their respective policies is that to just try to surprise the opponent rather than any objective value coming out of the opening is irrelevant. The surprise value turns out to be the most important factor.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, my predictions have been wrong too. I will say Magnus and Levy going into today's game did correctly predict in English. Now, as we head towards the rest day and then game 13, where Gukesh will have white, I still think he's going to go back to e4, but I've been wrong before. I can't get over the fact that suddenly the French is this like, that's the uncrackable defense is the French of all things. Like it seems like a dream scenario. No offense to all the French players listening, but listen, if you're telling me the World Championship's on the line and you're facing the French as opposed to all these other openings and you need to win, you would think, with these renowned theoreticians, they can find something. And of course, maybe Ding would surprise us and play double king pawn anyway after one. But anyway, that's one of my many wrong predictions. Also, when Gukesh finally broke through in game 11, I thought to myself, I wasn't really wrong about the match. I was just early,
Yeah, and then here we are at game 12 and we are dead tied. And yeah, who would have thought? I mean, part of the reason why, I will be very honest here with you, part of the reason why I planned my trip the way I did, part of it was family obligations, but the other part was that I assumed that I will have no more than 1, potentially 2 games to cover upon my return, and it's over. I never thought that this match was going to go to 14 games, which is now inevitable, right? Like, we know that we are going to see at the very least 14 games.
Yeah, and a very good chance of a tiebreak.
I've never in my wildest dream thought that this was going to happen. I thought that Gukesh was going to take it out convincingly before the finish line.
So what do you think has gone wrong? Obviously it's hard to judge, but is Gukesh playing worse, Ding playing better, or both? I mean, I believe I asked Hammer this after game 6 as well, but still a mystery.
I think it's a bit of both, but personally, I am more surprised by how well Ding is fighting rather than how Gukesh is not up to his previous form. I think it was pretty much predictable that Gukesh will not be able to maintain that form that he demonstrated during the Olympiad, not because it was so incredibly good, part of it is that too, but mostly because it's a match scenario, the nerves are through the roof, he's fighting for a title that would make him part of chess history, no less, as the youngest world champion ever. So when you are under the pump that much, there's no way that it doesn't show in your chess. Nonetheless, I think it's more so that Ding is really, 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 really impressively fighting. And coming back from the ashes, I mean, again, let's be honest, his last year has been a shocker. An absolute shocker. Very poor chess, dispirited. Like, he just didn't feel like his heart was in the game at all. And, it was even a question whether he would show up and play this match in the first place. And that considered, I think that he came as prepared as one could be. I think their match strategy has been successful. He has chosen his team very well. They seem to gel incredibly well with Rapport, not only chess-wise, but on a personal level too, which I think sometimes is even more important. And so he is extremely difficult to take down. The Chinese wall, pardon my poor analogy, stands really firm.
Yeah. Although, I mean, he did, of course, make that massive blunder, obviously, to lose the last game. Now, obviously, there's a good chance he would have lost that game anyway, or at least a decent chance. But that was sort of the moment where you felt like the inconsistent form that we've been seeing has reared its ugly head. But then he bounced back so quickly. And you're right that predominantly, obviously, he's played better than expected. And maybe Gukesh has missed a few opportunities that in peak form he wouldn't miss. And I don't expect at that point, maybe when it gets to rapid, they'll be able to let it flow a little more. But now, I mean, I just think they're both the nerves are so high. And I think that that's contributed to the teetering results of the last couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Look, everyone was predicting, or everyone was thinking that Gukesh is going to be the front runner of this match no matter what, because if the long time control games go into a tiebreak, then he's just going to take out the tiebreak because he's better, so much better at fast chess. I don't see that. Call me crazy, but my initial approach to the whole match, and my approach still is that the longer it goes, the worse it gets for Gukesh. I think that by far his best chance to take the crown was to win in the normal time control games, and as we drop the time, the chance is getting more and more level, if not in Ding's favor. I mean, what are we basing it on? Ding defeated Nepo, who is a god tier rapid/blitz player, right? Like, he plays fast chess. In fact, he essentially plays rapid chess in his normal time control,
Exactly.
right? What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And Ding took him out in the tiebreak. So I don't understand why we are promoting the idea of shorter time controls favor Gukesh. I'm very happy to be wrong, by the way.
I think most people do agree with you.
But I just don't get this notion. Like, I just am not with it. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I mean, and I think a lot of people have said that Ding will have a elevated chance. Not only the tiebreak against Nepo, which obviously was amazing on the biggest stage, but he had all those great results during the pandemic in the online events, which were predominantly rapid as well. The only thing I've pushed back against is this idea that, like, you can look at Gukesh's lower rapid and blitz ratings and really ascertain something concrete from that, just because he's only 18. Like, these kids' ratings have trouble keeping up even in a classical format where they're playing hundreds of games a year, or at least 100 games a year. So for it to, in a rapid and blitz format where you play even less frequently, I wouldn't use the rating as basis. But nonetheless, if you want to make like a qualitative judgment based on like just how strong and experienced these top players are in rapid, whereas Gukesh hasn't had that many high stakes games, I think it's reasonable. I just feel like it's more like an absence of information than concrete information that Gukesh is worse.
Yeah, but like, if you listen to recent interviews, Magnus made a very interesting point when he compared Gukesh to the rest of top players, and he said that he's a complete oddball, an absolute oddball, in that his blitz play, or even the rapid play, versus his long time control game is not even close to be on the same level, and he has never seen this before. Like, it's a completely odd phenomenon to him. Like, you look at the likes of Giri, Hikaru, Fabiano, whoever, right? play fantastic long time control, play brilliant blitz. And then, according to Magnus at least, Gukesh is like not at all. Like his blitz game is nothing to write home about. I don't know. We will see, but this is definitely an interesting thing to note that the young Indian, I don't think is favored whatsoever in shorter time controls.
Yeah, and Magnus and Levy today on today's recap said they don't think he's favored, period, anymore.
Certainly not. I mean, 2 games left. It's a complete coin toss. And in fact, the psychological edge is now very clearly with Ding. I mean,
Yeah,
on the back of a win, you always feel like, bring it, baby.
yeah,
For sure. No, those stories, I think, by game 6, I think we could safely say, based on what the games looked like until that point, was that there was no clear favorite here. It's a complete 50-50 even race.
yeah. I mean, maybe even Ding's favorite at this point, to your point. Well, we want to keep this short because people only have a couple days to listen to this before it becomes obsolete. But Andras, as I teased, we got to get some chess improvement takeaways from this match so far. I have got a couple, but first, let's let you have the floor first. What can us struggling amateurs learn from this epic match?
Look, I think I'm going to be honest with you. I knew that this question was coming, and I had been thinking about the answer. And the more I thought, the harder I found it. Because,
Yeah,
when you look at a competition, like a proper full-blown competition with at least 10 or, God forbid, 100 players, depending whether it's an open or a closed top-tier event, you have got games per day to look at, to cherry pick from, to go like, I found something exciting in blah game, or have you seen that motif in, whatever. But here we are looking at one game a day between two of the best chess players in the world. So what we see very few of, admittedly we have seen some, but very few, is instructive mistakes and blunders. Mistakes and blunders are the most instructive things we learn from, because that's when we get to see an idea, a tactic, whatever, to unfold in their perfection. When you see two players of the same level, usually you see unstoppable force versus immovable object story, and there is not a lot that you can take away from it because there is no explosiveness, there is no decisive effect. And so in the end of the day, you watch 7 hours of chess and you scratch your head going like, wow, I don't know what my takeaway is from here. Now, I don't want to leave you with such an empty answer. I'm going to give you one, but I don't know how much you will like it. What I was also thinking about yesterday, also observing the game, by the way, is that one thing that is very unique, unusual, perhaps even bad to some degree about what the players are doing in this match is their time consumption.
That's where I was going. Go ahead.
There have been a lot of criticism toward both, but in particular toward about his time consumption. Right? And we all have our own thinking patterns and manners of using time and how we manage our games and so on. So some of us can relate, some of us go like, yeah, Ding is going crazy. What I wanted to tell you about this is the following. I think that it's very, very easy to jump the gun, pull the trigger and go like, it is crazy. Move 4, he's thinking half an hour, this shouldn't be happening. I think as amateurs or as improvers or whatever we call ourselves, what we need to see in this, which is not visible at all, but we need to be able to empathize here, is that what you need to see is that there's a lot going on here that is not visible. And I would encourage students, improvers too, to spend a lot of time if they think that the position or the decision that they are about to make is critical. However, make yourself accountable. Because staring at the board for 20 minutes and then going like, I just didn't know what to do is not good enough. So if you dedicate 20 minutes, half an hour, you must come up with lines and you must be able to verbalize what went through your head, what kind of thought process you followed, and how you came to a conclusion of what move you made. Right? So it's, in my opinion, it's a tricky subject to discuss because once again, you don't see what's in their head. So from the outside, it just looks like the guy is sitting there shaking his head. But I can guarantee you that when Ding was sitting on move 4 in that reverse Blumenfeld, he was very, very deep in various lines. And if he was a type of person that would be happily chatting to for half an hour about, his thought process, he would have told you insanely deep variations, compared, contrasted, decisions, cancelled, not that one, no, we're going to, you get me, right?
Yeah,
It would have been a super impressive mind map of what he was thinking and how he came to the. And by the way, just for the record, after 10 moves, he was better with black in that
that's
opening.
true. Yeah,
And
it
in
did.
fact, Gukesh counterburnt his clock because he was playing way too fast and got carried away. And that's it. Ding was ahead on the board by move 10. No questions, hands down. So don't be afraid to use your time, but hold yourself accountable. What you do in that time, and, be honest with yourself. Am I calculating lines here, or am I just running in circles? Because one is okay, the other one isn't.
Yeah, I've done both for sure. And of course, time management was one of the issues that I highlighted too, just to give an overview for anyone who didn't catch all the details of. So Ding's been walking a tightrope in many games, but game 11, the game he lost, as Andras alluded to, not only spent 40 minutes on move 4, but spent a total of an hour on the first 5 moves. And it just seems like at the biggest stage, like where, months of preparation, teams behind you, like to just punt off an hour. I mean, as you say, I'm sure he's calculating deeply, and I'm sure like the position was not what he expected. But to start with half an hour to an hour and a half, basically, to get to move 40 in one of the biggest games of your life. So it can't be like game theory optimal, as they would say. But one of the broad lessons from this match, generally, to me, is just we've got to be forgiving of ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Any mistakes that
Exactly.
we might make, because they're never going to go away. If you can make it to the World Championship and you have people, armchair warriors, keyboard warriors typing that these people have lost it, like, we're not going to be perfect either. And I also found the same sort of element when they were doing the post-mortem. I think it was for game 11, when they were talking about the evaluations, their evaluations of the positions were frequently wrong. They were like, oh, I thought I was better here when he was better. And both of them had points where they thought they were better and they were worse, or vice versa. And that also shows the importance of just trying to stay in the moment, tunnel vision,
Yeah,
think
yeah,
like a
yeah.
goldfish, whatever you want to say. Just don't get too caught up in a narrative. Don't get too caught up in emotions, and don't think for an hour on move 4 if you can help it.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing is, see that, and this is where we need to be a little bit realistic, is that they are so good players that they can afford sometimes losing a lot of time because their thought processes are so fast and their ability to eliminate candidate moves and, cut to the
Yeah.
chase is so infinitely better developed than ours, is that sometimes they can make that 1 hour feel like, yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, that's a
So
good point as
yeah.
well.
So
Okay.
I definitely am not promoting the idea of burning time mindlessly. More so that if you do, then do it in a meaningful fashion, meaning, calculate proper lines, compare evaluations, like hold yourself accountable for what you've done other than just, oh, I was thinking. Like,
Yeah.
that's not good enough. Tell me what, how, what was the conclusion, and so on.
Yeah. Well said. All right. Well, last thing, Andres. I mean, you did just come from Singapore. So you mentioned via email you've got a story or two to share. How was the trip?
Oh, look, we should have left an hour for this, Ben. Look, I had the time of my life chess-wise, hands down. It was the best trip I have ever done in my life. The organization was fantastic, the venue was incredible, but what really, really made it super special to me personally, and if you don't mind, I will hit a personal note here, was the fact that having a VIP access, or rather ticket or registration, granted me access to every area of the match. In particular, the VIP room. And the VIP room was basically a hotbed of chess celebrities day in, day out. And so what happened was that usually I would rock up there as soon as the game kicked off. And by the time I would be there, Vishy Anand would be there too, right? No less. Like every single day while I was there, barring the last day. And then some additional grandmasters would always be there. Almost every single day we had Maurice Ashley, the MC of the event too. And from day 2, we sort of developed this routine wherein Maurice would come in, we would briefly discuss the opening, then Maurice would set up one of his many incredible study compositions, and Vishy and I would simultaneously
Wow.
try to solve the study while
That's
also
intimidating. How are you going to sit there with Vishy?
while discussing the ongoing game. Now, I was so starstruck by the mere fact that Vishy would be willing to stand by the same chessboard and talk to
Right.
me as if he's equal. I couldn't talk for 5 minutes. I was like, what is going on here? This is a dream. And then regularly we would be joined by absolute top GMs. Emil Sutovsky came in a number of times, Grandmaster Injic, reigning European champion was playing the side event, he would rock up, and a Muzichuk would come in. It was like every day we just had celebrities, and I'm standing there going like, I so don't belong here. And man, it was just absolutely insane. The absolute highlight was that one day we were solving a study by Morris that apparently a lot of top players couldn't crack, like Fabiano, so Wesley, so Giri, I think, ultimately did, according to Morris. And then Vishy and I tried to solve it, and like after half an hour, we kind of put the solution together, except for the last few moves. And we were just staring, and then we found the winning line, and literally in unison, we called out the final idea, which was a beautiful queen sacrifice. And I don't know, like that moment just compares to nothing when you both go at the same time. Oh, queen h6, and we just literally said that at the same time. We looked at each other and like, oh man, brilliant.
That's amazing.
I won't forget that moment for my life. It was just something else. And Vishy is just such a legend. Like, he really did treat me like he didn't even know who I was for a day or two. I mean, obviously I introduced myself, but it's like just whoever. Like, for him, I'm a nobody. And he was talking to everyone in that room, like he has just known them for a lifetime. And of course, he was pestered, continuously for selfies, signature, whatever. Never rejected anyone. Not once. He's just something else. But the general vibe, by the way, was very, very happy and positive. Everyone was very happy to engage with anyone at all. So I just had a brilliant time there. Absolutely fantastic.
That sounds amazing. So when I interviewed Mike Klein, he mentioned that he even tried to get Vishy off the record to say whether he was working with anyone. And basically Mike said, he said, no, he's not working with anyone, but you also shouldn't believe what I tell you, apparently is where Vishy landed in his conversations with Mike. So my question to you is, did Vishy belie any rooting interests when you were sitting there watching the games with him?
Look, it was very interesting because obviously Mike Klein was not the only one who tried to suss out what was happening. I do think that Vishy was genuine. There's absolutely no way that someone who is very closely linked with a team that is responsible for preparing a player for a world championship match would leave the event during it, which is what Vishy had done, right? So he left, I think, between round 8 and 9, right? So I think that simple act, and I mean it respectfully, right? But I can't possibly see how, if he had been a member of Team Gukesh, he would have left halfway through the match. Obviously, he did so because he had obligations. I think he was traveling maybe to Qatar. I don't remember. But he had to travel somewhere. But at the same time, he also dropped a few breadcrumbs that made me think that he was closer to Team Gukesh than just a random GM. But then again, that's logical, right? Like, they are from the same country. Vishy was very obviously cheering for Gukesh as best as he could. Like, one day we rocked up to the VIP room, we start the opening, they start the opening, and then Gukesh started thinking about a certain move in an unexpected manner in terms of, this is still theory, whatever. And then Vishy dropped the half sentence like, oh yeah, he didn't sleep well last night. And I'm like, where did that come from? Like, how do you know? And then I go, yeah, of course, he knows everything, right? Like, so they must be close. But I don't think that there was an official, I'm going to get you on my team, Vishy, these are the conditions, yada, yada, yada. I think that perhaps his advice was sought, but I think that's where they drew the line.
Okay, yeah.
Now, but again, I have no information. That's my guess, based on the vibes I was getting.
Okay. All right. Well, good information there. And yeah, sounds like an absolutely amazing trip. Thanks for sharing those details.
My pleasure. There's so much I could tell. But yeah, the essence of this was, it was just spending time with those chess celebrities was... And of course, other chess celebrities were there too, by the way, like Twitch streamers, Eric Rose and Nemo was there.
I just found out Eric was there. I didn't even realize.
Oh, yeah. Eric came, I think, around round 3, and then I think he would be probably staying till the end. Nemo was there almost simultaneously with me. She left a day after me as well. So all kinds of chess celebs were present. Eugenio Torre, the first Asian Grandmaster, was one of the guests of honors, and it was also very, very great to meet a legend like him. I jokingly mentioned to him when we were introduced that, by the way, I'm married to a Filipina, to which he immediately countered with, "You also got checkmated by a Filipino then." And I'm like, touche, well done, sir. So yeah, it's just like celebrities wherever you looked. And I would like to grab this opportunity here to send a shout out to Grandmaster Kevin Go Wei Min, who was the head organizer of the event. Kevin was working like 24/7 non-stop to please everyone, to make everything as smooth as possible. And whilst the event is still ongoing, I think it's very safe to say that he has done an absolutely tremendous job. I did not see a single person there who would have complained about anything at all, to the last detail.
Yeah, and you're already the third person I've interviewed who's been there, and they've all just raved about the organization. So
Yeah, look, I have nothing
shout
to
out to
compare
Kevin.
it to, right? So in that regard, I'm almost, someone whose opinion shouldn't matter really too much. But obviously, for a World Championship match, you have the highest of expectations, and they were all met as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I was fortunate enough, by the way, I will tell you this, and then maybe you will have to cut some things out. But on day 0, I went inside the fish tank when they were building the actual playing. Believe it or not, they need to build the desk that they are playing in, right? Like, they need to embed the chessboard, and there is an incredible amount of scientific work that goes into making that ready for the match. I just thought that, like, yeah, it's a desk, put a chessboard on, see you. Nothing like that. The amount of electrotechnical, electronics and engineering and all that jazz that goes into it to make sure that the transmission is fine, the cameras are set up correctly, that there is, no signals coming in and out for cheat protection and all that. Oh my God, it was insane. Then the chairs, the players selected different chairs. It's a story on its own right. And then, of course, it feels like an FBI interrogation room, because from the outside you see in, from the inside you don't see out. And so when you are in there, it's quite a claustrophobic field to be in that fish tank. They're really and truly on their own here. It really does feel isolated. And then there was stories the guys told me about the little cameras that they put on the chessboard, and how one of the particular camera actually recorded the most watched chess video on the internet. So there were so many little things happening there. Like, seriously, you could interview a lot of people and they would tell you all absolutely sensational side stories too.
Sounds amazing.
Mm.
Well, Andras, thank you for sharing your perspective. Super excited for these last 2 games. I think listeners know, but it resumes Wednesday. So for listeners, the Perpetual Chess plan is no more bonus pods, even if there's a tiebreak. But when it's all said and done, I'm pleased to share that I'll be interviewing Grandmaster Daniel Naroditsky. And we're going to release it as a regular episode. So I might release it early, if just like when it's done, but we're either recording on Friday or Monday, depending on if there's a tiebreak. But will be exciting to hear his thoughts and look back at who knows what's going to happen in these 2 games or 2 games plus tiebreaks.
Indeed, it's gonna be an absolute banger, I'm pretty sure. My prediction, because I like to make them because I'm always wrong, is that it's definitely going to a tiebreaker now.
Yeah, it'll probably be like Gukesh loses with white, and then Ding loses with white, and then it goes to tiebreak. So something like that. The way this is going.
Yeah, that would fit with how well we could guess the likely events, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, listeners, again, check out Andras's free Chessable course. On the course, he's doing daily video recaps. You'll get a lot more perspective, a lot more lessons. And Andras, thanks as always.
Thank you very much for having me on the pod again, Ben. Have a good one, mate. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.